For as long as I can remember, the words of Dr. King have fallen down upon our lives like cool rain on a hot summer day, lifting our spirits when current events weigh upon us, opening our eyes and our heart to the abundance in our lives, and challenging us love to all our endeavors. Collaboration is described as a collective determination to reach an objective or objectives. I love that term, collective determination. Dr. King was a steadfast proponent of collaboration, reminding us not only that each of us is capable of positively impacting others, but that it is our obligation to do so, because what each of us does individually affects us all collectively. Most of you know how I feel about Dr. King. Like every human being, he had his flaws. Nonetheless, he was a brilliant, highly articulate, doggedly persistent, infinitely patient, and deeply caring man. Understandably, his legacy is the focus of a great deal of attention every January at his birthday and each year in March at this local event. However, there are thousands who played vital roles in the successes of the civil rights movement. Collaborators that literally made his legacy possible. I'd like to honor them today.
Wait, Ken, you do not have time for it.
What? All right, hold on. Here, you can hold these. 12? What you thinking, Augie?
Like 6.
6. All right, 6 it is. Cheyenne Webb, 9 years old, was called Dr. King's smallest freedom fighter. Shown on the picture on the right with her friend Rachel West, she waits on the curb for the beginning of the first attempt at the march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. She would sneak out of school to attend demonstrations in her hometown of Selma. She would sneak out of her house at night to attend mass meetings at the local AME church. She participated in all 3 Selma marches. When violence occurred at the first march, freedom fighter Hosea Williams picked her up to protect her as he turned to flee. Cheyenne beat on his chest and looked into his eyes and said, "Put me down, I can run faster than you." And Hosea put her down, and she did run faster than him, all the way back to the safety of her house that night she snuck back out of again to go to yet another meeting. Thanks to Cheyenne and all the young people who proved to be the key ingredient in the success of the civil rights movement, we honor Dr. King today. John Lewis was at the forefront of every major civil rights campaign, including those that Dr. King felt might fail and therefore shied away from. He was beaten severely at the first Selma March. He was dragged from a bus and beaten unconscious as a freedom rider. He was unjustly arrested 24 times and imprisoned for 40 days in a Mississippi penitentiary, all because of his efforts to end segregation. He played a key role in the realization of the King Memorial. He was at the Edmund Pettus Bridge yesterday to celebrate 50 years, to hear the president speak. He fights today for justice. Thanks to John Lewis, we honor Dr. King today. A civil rights activist from Detroit named Viola Liuzzo was horrified at the images from the first march in Selma. She heeded Dr. King's call for help and told her bewildered family that she was going to travel from Detroit to Selma and assist in the campaign in any way that she could. She performed a multitude of duties, welcoming and recruiting volunteers and shuttling them to and from various transportation hubs. She participated in the final and successful march from Selma to Montgomery. Afterwards, she shuttled fellow marchers to the airport. As she was returning from Selma on a back road, a carload of Klansmen spotted her and took her life. Thanks to Viola and all the volunteers who said, "Tell me what to do and I'll do it," we honor Dr. King today. Andrew Young was a deeply loyal friend of Martin. He was particularly adept at the details of a campaign. In fact, he was so good at them, he was much better than was Martin at such details. His job was to get a parade permit whenever there was going to be a protest march. He's shown here, keeping an eye on his best friend Martin, who is sitting up at an O'Hare airport gate. I guarantee you Andrew was just as tired. He was with Martin to the end. In the parking lot of the Lorraine Motel, he saw Martin come out onto the balcony. He began to discuss with him the details of the next day's rally for the Memphis sanitation workers when the shots rang out. Thanks to Andrew Young, we honor Dr. King today. When Martin was depressed, feeling low, he would phone his friend, the songstress Mahalia Jackson, and ask her on the phone to sing any one of his favorite hymns. Whether it was 4 in the afternoon or, as was often was, 2:30 in the morning, she happily complied. Near the end of his speech at the National Mall, the one we all know, Dr. King was dissatisfied with the impact on the crowd to that point. He was frantically searching for those final rousing words when he heard somebody whisper, "Psst, Martin." And he turned and saw Mahalia, who went on to whisper, "Tell him about the dream, Martin. Tell him about the dream." Her suggestion began those incredibly eloquent words, the most eloquent words perhaps that Martin ever spoke, and some of the most eloquent words that we ever heard. Thanks to Mahalia, Harry Belafonte, Aretha Franklin, Mavis Staples, James Robeson, and dozens of others whose talents not only raised the spirits of Dr. King, but raised much-needed funds for the success of the movement. We honor Dr. King today. Coretta Scott King gave up a promising singing career to marry the irresistibly charming Martin. She raised their 4 children under very difficult circumstances. She would unpack and repack his suitcase when he would arrive home after the kids' bedtimes and having to leave before they awoke. She knew to grab a ringing phone at 2 in the morning and take it into the hallway, where she would hear yet another caller threat and promise to end her husband's life. With incredible grace, she would say, "I am so sorry you feel that way. Thanks for calling." And she would slip back into bed with Martin undisturbed and none the wiser. In the decades following his death, she kept his legacy alive through her graceful management of the King Center for Nonviolent Social Change. Everyone in our troop has things we hope you take away from today. I have two. There would be no holiday in January. You wouldn't hear my voice today. There'd be no music for Martin. History would have moved at a much slower pace and involved a great deal more pain if it was not for Coretta Scott King. Thanks to Coretta, we honor Dr. King today. How would we overcome past challenges without collective determination? How would our world survive from one day to the next without collaboration? I ask you now to think of your own unique life, of the loving network of loving collaborators who make your life possible, those whose skills enrich your life, your Mahalia, your Andrew, your Viola, those who are always there when you need them. If you were to list these angels one by one, where would you begin? How would you know where to stop? If you were to list these angels one by one, where would you begin? How would you know where to stop? When Martin looked out over the social landscape of his time, it was daunting. And at times, he was overwhelmed. I know that you and I find our times daunting. It is easy, it is so easy to slip into despondency, to want to tiptoe over to where the innocent bystanders gather, none of whom, Dr. King reminded us often, were anywhere near innocent. But to go over to the sidelines and join them and lower our own personal stress while ignoring the difficulties of our brothers and sisters. On April 3rd, 1968, Martin told us that we would get to the promised land, that his vision of a beloved community would come to be. He lovingly collaborated with us. He guided and prodded and urged us to collaborate with him and all others, right up until his last breath. I believed him then, and I believe him now. Because of Martin's impact, there are things that I, for certain, without a doubt, know. I know that each of us gathered here and everywhere beyond will take our small piece of the world and make it a better place. I know that love and truth and the courage to do what's right are the guideposts of our collective, collaborative journey. And I know that we will let the power of love touch every facet of our life and every facet of every life we touch. We will live this every day, letting love ride upon every breath. Thanks for listening.